Hello, my name is Steve Hobbs. I'm the chairperson for the Lawrence County Family Promise Board of Directors, and I'd like to welcome you to this event. This year, and this date marks our first annual celebration that we have from our opening date of February the 11th, 2020. And we are doing this event, unfortunately, virtually, but we're going to make it happen. We're determined to do that as we will do this each year to celebrate a year of service of Family Promise. Naomi Broadway, our executive director, is going to facilitate this virtual event along with our special guest, Mark Willis, who is the representative of seat 16 for Lawrence County. And we give a lot of thanks to Mark for taking his time to do this and to help us through this event. I would also like to thank our board of directors for all the work that they've done this past year, and also many of them in getting us up and running almost 3 years prior to our opening. In addition to that, I'd like to thank our sponsors for this event. We have various sponsors that will be noted throughout the presentation, and these sponsors contributed at different levels, and we do appreciate all of the sponsors, as well as all of the volunteers that have helped us throughout this whole process. And with that, again, I'd like to just welcome you to this virtual event, and hopefully you find this informative and worthwhile. Thank you very much.
Dear Heavenly Father, we give you praise for putting in the hearts and minds of many people in Lawrence County a burden for some of the most vulnerable members of our community, including families with children who are experiencing homelessness. We thank you for the vision that you gave the membership of Leadership Lawrence for what has become known as Family Promise of Lawrence County. Today, as we celebrate the first anniversary of serving families in need, we thank you for your guiding hand which has brought us to this day. We ask for your continued guidance, wisdom, vision, and grace that we need for this important endeavor. We pray that when others hear of this ministry, they will all say, "Look at what God has done," and give you the glory. For it is in the name of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ that we serve and we pray. Amen.
Welcome to the Family Promise of Lawrence County Day Center virtual tour. You can see here the front of our building, which is located at 205 Church Street, right by First Baptist Church of Lawrence, which owns this building. This building was formerly offices and was converted and completely remodeled and renovated by volunteers prior to Family Promise officially opening. So let's go inside. Here is our entryway of the building. Next, if you go to the right, you'll see our executive director's office, which is available for meetings with volunteers, donors, supporters, community agencies, as well as clients. If you go to the left side of the entryway, here's another office which belongs to our case manager, volunteers. Right now it is currently unoccupied, but being set aside for our family advocate, which we are in the process of hiring. If we go forward, you can see this multi-purpose room that we refer to as the resource room. It's available for computers for adults to do work on their case plan, as well as our most recent family, while they were in residence, had children doing virtual learning. So we had another table brought in here where children were able to sit in here and work on their virtual learning. And then if you move across the hall and go to our kitchen, which is not a full kitchen. We don't have a stove or an oven, but we do have a microwave toaster oven as well as a fridge. And this is really for snack time and lunch for families when they are in the day center. Breakfast and dinner are normally eaten at the host church. If we go down the hall, we'll see one of our 3 bathrooms. We have 2 full bathrooms, one of which is seen here. This is a handicap accessible restroom. Here is our family room. Our second full bathroom is off to the left of this room, which has a tub shower. On the right, just off screen, is a TV with a DVD player. This is, as we said, the family room. It's available for families and children to just kind of hang out and enjoy their time. And then if we go back across our back hallway, this is our storage room. As you can see, many of the shelves are empty. Those shelves are currently empty in waiting for when families are in residence of the program and they can store their belongings on those shelves. We do use some of them for bookshelves, as well as on the other side of the room. Here are some supplies, hygiene supplies, school supplies, art supplies, cleaning supplies, etc., available as needed. And you can get a glimpse of our half bathroom. This was formerly a lawyer's office, and so this one room still has wall-to-wall bookshelves. Here is our quote wall. Here is the hallway that runs through the middle of our day center. This is looking directly to our front door, and in that door frame to the right, if you enter, is our laundry room. These washer and dryer were donated to us before the opening of our program last year, and there is room on the other side of this room available for folding and sorting of laundry, as well as some more storage space. When we officially opened last year, we had a grand opening celebration, ribbon cutting ceremony, as well as an open house, which was very well attended. That was on February 11th, 2020, which of course was mere weeks before we were told not to gather in large groups in person. But we wanted to look back at that time and celebrate all that we have accomplished this year and let you see what the day center looks like if maybe you weren't able to attend last year, and also to see some of the changes that have happened in the last year.
We're here tonight celebrating the 1-year anniversary of Family Promise of Lawrence County. It has been 1 year, and we're all excited about the wonderful things that have been going on, and what a wonderful opportunity is it for us tonight to sit back and talk a little bit with Naomi Broadway. She's the executive director. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing well. Thank you. How are you doing?
Good. We're 6 feet apart.
Yes.
So
try and keep it safe.
We're keeping it safe here, but many people perhaps maybe don't know a whole lot about the organization that you're the executive director for, and we want to help educate our community and make people aware of all the wonderful things that's going on in Lawrence County. Can you tell us a little bit about what Family Promise is?
Absolutely. Family Promise is a national organization. It was started over 30 years ago in New Jersey, and then has since spread all across the country to be more than 200 different affiliates. Of course, Family Promise of Lawrence County is one of them. The Family Promise model was designed to approach family homelessness in a more holistic approach, kind of creating using networks of congregations and community organizations that already existed. So instead of a more traditional approach to working with homelessness and having a permanent shelter site, our founder, Karen Olson, came up with the idea of working with faith communities and using the congregational space that's not being used during the week to serve as a rotational shelter site. And so the idea behind the rotational shelter model is that instead of each affiliate having their own permanent shelter site for overnight, they would have their congregational partners hosts for a week at a time, and each host congregation has at least one support congregation, because there's also a lot of volunteer involvement. We call it a hospitality program. Family Promise was originally called the Interfaith Hospitality Network. Over the years has evolved to include a lot more programs, and so then they changed the name to Family Promise many years ago. And then the families in the program rotate between in these shelter sites of the congregation for staying at a week at a time. They're hosted, so we call them guests, families who are in the program. And then we have a day center that has things like laundry and showers, kitchenette, computers, internet access, because though some of our congregational facilities do have some of those things, though it's not a requirement. And then we provide the beds, and we rotate from week to week. And so that's how the rotational shelter model of Family Promise was designed as a different approach to working with families experiencing homelessness. It also is different from a traditional shelter model in that it very intentionally is keeping families together, which a lot of more traditional shelters are unable to do.
Well, if you are a guest of a church, you're the guest of, do you have to, if you're not ready to leave after the week, do you change to the next host church?
That's a great question. So the families who are in the program, yes, they would rotate from week to week. Different affiliates do this differently. Our affiliate does not have a time limit for how long families can stay. By agreeing to be in the program, you're also agreeing to this intensive case management process and working very closely with our staff, volunteers, as well as other community organizations to find that stable environment, find stable housing, financial stability. And so we come up with a case plan, we meet regularly to work on that plan, and as long as families are able to abide within the rules and the guidelines of the program, because there is a lot of structure that has to be involved, and they're continuing to work towards their goals, making progress, then they are welcome to stay for as long as they need to.
So to be a host church, they would just need to contact you?
Oh, absolutely. We're always looking for more host congregations or support congregations. And really the main difference between the two is that host congregations are actually able to provide the site, versus support congregations are providing the other kind of parts of the hospitality of, the volunteer supports. They might help with meals, exactly, supplies. And so, but we're always looking for more host and support congregations. We currently have 11 host congregations and 14 support congregations.
Oh, that's wonderful. So if someone is interested, they just need to contact you.
Absolutely.
Because I have the feeling that there are a lot of people in our community who would love to be a part of a program like this, and it's definitely been an asset to Lawrence County. And tell us a little bit about how it started in Lawrence County.
Absolutely. So there's a program called Leadership Lawrence County, and they will take a community issue and kind of take it as a project to research how can, what's a way that we can address this issue. Several years ago, the cohort that had gone through Leadership Lawrence wanted to address family homelessness. And so through their project and research, they came across the Family Promise model and used that as the recommendation for a program that could work well to address the crisis of family homelessness in Lawrence County. After the program, there were people who had been in the program, other stakeholders, congregations that continued to have conversations about hey, we really could do this. And so over the years, they started recruiting churches. They brought together kind of the creation of the beginnings of the program. They, I guess in 2019, maybe found the site of the day center, which then was completely renovated. I was brought on as the inaugural executive director in the very last days of 2019, so really early January 2020. And then we officially had our grand opening we had an open house of our day center as well as a ribbon cutting ceremony February 11th, 2020, so just about a year ago. We officially opened our shelter to serve families February 16th. And so we have now been around for a year.
So it's been a good year.
It's been an interesting year, like it has been for all of us, for sure.
And I guess, what's deep on a lot of people's mind, and rightly so, is COVID-19. Have you seen how COVID-19 has perhaps affected this program?
It's affected this program. It's affected all of us as individuals, as congregations. I spoke of how we have all these congregations that are part of our network. We actually, due to the different ways congregations are approaching their services or their operations, and there being some variety in that, which is all dependent on what people are comfortable with. And as well as given that we have such small staff and we rely so heavily on volunteers, we actually had to pause our rotational program, and it has been on pause since, I guess, April last year, which is not to say we haven't continued working with families, but we paused our program in April because we barely started February.
Started in February, and then
it was
seems
declared
like
a global
March,
pandemic
and starting
early
in March, it seems like everything shut down.
And things changed very quickly.
And we didn't know what to do.
Exactly.
It was something that most all of us have never experienced before, much less you're starting a new program in a new community with volunteers, and then all of a sudden this pandemic hits, and you're dealing directly with families.
Exactly, and you can argue that we're seeing more of a need than ever, not necessarily just of family homelessness, but of just people being affected by the economical effects of the pandemic, as well as people being affected by illness, and the schools changing their schedules. For a while, pretty much all the schools were on virtual learning. Now there's still some variety on that, And that being a challenge for childcare, and then being a challenge for employment. And so we've seen a lot of cases of need where families may have actually gotten sick and been out of work for several weeks, which then put them behind bills. Or we've seen people who even were just exposed and required to quarantine, which then had a loss of income from employment, put them behind on bills. And it's changed our operations for sure. We had this idea of how Family Promise was going to work. The model that I described to you of the traditional rotational model was a thing that we had been working towards for years as the idea of what Family Promise was going to be. And then we barely got to do it. I guess we did like 2 rotations, so 2 weeks of the rotational model before we switched to a static site. We even had to host the first family that we had in our day center overnight for the end of their stay, which we had never intended to do. But as you said, things were changing so quickly in March and April, where there were increased restrictions, and there was just increased concern on safety and a lot of confusion on what was safe and how to take enough precautionary measures while also recognizing that there was still this great need that needed to be, we still needed to serve families. And so it's definitely been a challenge of seeing how we can creatively adapt, figure out what resources do we have, what can we do. And so coming from a place of abundance instead of scarcity. So thinking, maybe we can't host in churches as a rotation, but maybe there's a way that we can do a static site shelter, or maybe there's ways that we can work with other community organizations to do outreach. We've shifted a lot of our focus to our homelessness prevention program, so trying to keep people in their homes. How can we provide resources and case management and the same kind of encouragement and guided process that we have that's really a hallmark of the Family Promise model, but without that traditional shelter.
So I guess you have to develop a lot of relationships and with other organizations. How do you get your referrals?
That's a great question too. So our referrals really come from anywhere. So sometimes it's people that just found us on the internet. We have close relationships with a lot of the other community organizations, the schools. Sometimes it'll be people that contact churches, whether they're some of our partner congregations or just other local churches that, hey, somebody needs help with this or this person, they don't have a place to stay, and then they'll get in touch with us and we'll see what we're able to do.
Well, of course, when you have your guests come and you're providing these services, and I know that you depend a lot upon volunteers. So how do you go about getting volunteers for your group?
Yeah, so the way the original kind of model was designed is that every congregation has volunteers that will volunteer specifically during their host week. And so they'll be there in the evenings during the shelter, so they'll help with serving dinner, and it'll be like just kind of hanging out. There'll be a lot of opportunity to just have conversations with the families, play with the kids, and then have volunteers that actually stay overnight. We also have volunteers that drive our bus. We have as I mentioned, the beds will be rotated between weeks, so we need drivers for the truck as well. Then with the pandemic, of course, since without that rotational model, volunteering also changed, we did end up operating a static site with one of our host congregations, Centerpoint Wesleyan Church, from about mid-July to mid-November. And so we did need volunteer bus drivers. We had a team of wonderful volunteer bus drivers. We also, at that time, the children in the program, it was a family of 6 with 5 children, and they were all in virtual learning. And so I know that virtual learning has been a challenge for all parents, but having 5 different grade levels was certainly a challenge. So we were able to get some volunteers to come specifically help with the virtual learning, including an intern from Presbyterian, which Gabby Payne, who was wonderful. And then it's been, again, trying to think of creative ways to engage. So during the static site model, instead of one church being responsible for everything, Centerpoint took care of the facility and the volunteer needs, but all of our other partner congregations were still on a rotation, and they provided all the meals. So we did a contactless drop-off, meal drop-off situation where they could drop off the meals every evening, and they would take care of the groceries and the cleaning supplies, which of course we needed to do more cleaning supplies because of the pandemic to be as safe as possible. Fortunately, in that 4-month period that we had the static site shelter, we did not have a COVID case in any of our volunteers or our family or staff. So we call that a success for sure.
That is a success. Well, when you look at the host churches, I guess many times it would be similar to missions, how church groups, many times, I know my personal church, we go on missions, foreign missions, missions within the United States, but what a wonderful mission that we have right here in Lawrence County, and especially during this pandemic when so many organizations, especially churches that love to do mission work and to be part of being God's own hands and feet here on earth. What a wonderful opportunity for churches and organizations to become, like
Absolutely.
I said, God's hands and feet here on earth.
Absolutely, absolutely. And our volunteers and our congregations have been really wonderful about helping us figure out how to be creative. So how can we respond to help continue to serve people, even if we can't do it the way we thought we would. And so from everything from providing clothing to we had a family that had a baby on the way, so collecting baby items, we have had more than one family that we helped move into housing, and so getting them furniture, and other household goods, things like transportation, prayer, encouragement. All of those things have been ways that our volunteers have been really eager to stay involved, and we're always looking for more ways so we can keep them engaged, even without our traditional model.
Well, I know that you use volunteers tremendously to carry it out, but is this a 501c that if someone wanted to contribute money to be able to carry this
Yes.
mission out, or people are, I know you take a lot of gifts and a lot of things are given to your organization, but financially?
Yes,
the
so we are a
financial support?
registered 501c3 with the nonprofit, with the IRS, meaning every donation is tax deductible. And we provide information for your tax records so that you can have that.
You mentioned that you appreciate prayer for your guests and for your volunteers and for the hired staff. With a organization like this, would you call this a spiritual-based organization?
It's a wonderful question. So we're very intentionally interfaith, and we work very closely with communities of faith, but we do not require any religious instruction or any profession of faith for families who are in the program, but we see it as an opportunity to be a social service organization and therefore serve all different communities, but partner with communities of faith as an opportunity to show their beliefs. So kind of give an opportunity to really act. Since every major religion has a particular tenet of caring for the poor, and we see this as an opportunity for churches to work with us to really live out that mission.
Much like the Good Samaritan.
Absolutely.
You see someone that's in need, don't pass them by. Be able to
Which
help.
is not to say like that there's of course the opportunity to talk about faith with guests, but we always just ask that it be respectful, as long as it's a respectful conversation. If the guest wants to talk to you about that, wonderful. You should absolutely feel welcome to invite the guests to the church services if you want to, but then understand that there's no expectation that they have to attend. Our most recent family that stayed in the static site at Center Point Wesleyan actually attended church every week, which was their choice.
Yeah, I would think it would be a wonderful opportunity for churches to grow. First of all, for churches to be on a mission in their own community, but it would also be a wonderful way to witness, to be able to share the gospel, to be able to show what it's like to be a good friend and let our actions speak greater than our words. It's wonderful.
Hi everyone, I am Sandy Buchanan and I bring you greetings from Centerpoint Church. As we were the static site for hosting the first in-house family for Family Promise of Lawrence County, we have truly felt the blessings of God and His church. We say thank you for the opportunity to serve along you, great people, to bring hope and healing to a family in need. We must say that while it was an honor to be able to serve in this capacity, it came with many challenges. We, along with the staff of Family Promise, learned a great deal from our time with this family. And though they did not achieve as much as we had hoped, we consider our time with them to be a success. We faithfully loved and served the family well from the beginning, giving them a sense of belonging and dignity that they did not have when they arrived. Together, we all gave them food, shelter, everyday necessities, and hope for more than 4 months. And for me personally, being gifted the opportunity to spend an abundant amount of time with the family was extremely meaningful. I had opportunity to become a grandmother to children who had never felt the love and encouragement, the compassion, the help that children should experience. They had never experienced this in their lifetime, the love, the simple love of a grandmother. Mom was extremely thankful for the unconditional love that allowed her children to feel a new sense of self-respect and self-worth and hope for a better tomorrow that they had never experienced, especially in this time where they had nothing, they had lost everything. So I am so thankful for the opportunity to love them, to have mentored them, and to have shared the gospel with each of them. What a blessing to me. Thank you. You know, as Christians, we are each called to be the hands and the feet and the voice of Jesus. And that is what we were to this family. They were thankful for the love and support that each of us gifted to them. Whether you brought food and supplies, or drove the bus, or gifted financially, or offered words of encouragement to the family, know that your time and your finances made a difference to this family. But just as we cannot force people to accept God's free gifts of grace and forgiveness, we cannot force people to change. We are simply called to be obedient. And I believe with all of my heart that Family Promise of Lawrence County did just that. We loved this family well. So thank you again for the part you all played in allowing Centerpoint to serve God by serving this family. Many blessings to each of you in the role you played for a first year of success for Family Promise of Lawrence County. We here at Centerpoint look forward to this year and many years to come of serving alongside each of you to make a difference for hurting families, to be the hands and the feet and the voice of Jesus, to bring hope and healing to people who are hurting and have lost everything. So thank you again for the opportunity you've given us, and blessings to each of you.
Welcome to Centerpoint Wesleyan Church, one of our host congregations here at Family Promise of Lawrence County. They served as our static site shelter from mid-July through mid-November of 2020, and we wanted to give you a virtual tour. This is the front side of the building. If you go inside, there is a very nice wide open area which was able to be used as the mealtime area as well as some hangout area, and that table in the back is where food would be set up when it was dropped off by other congregations. We had a rolling cart that was set outside the front door so we could have contactless delivery of the dinners that were delivered by our other partner congregations for the volunteers and the guests that were staying in shelter at Centerpoint. When our most recent family was in residence in the shelter, it was a family of 6, and while they were here, there were 2 birthdays out of the family. This is when Shiloh turned 9, and then Shamarsha turned 15. Both girls had cakes baked by Sandy Buchanan, and they were very tasty. Here's the kitchen at Centerpoint. And here's one of the rooms that was used for a sleeping room for, I believe the volunteers stayed in this room. There was also, here's another one of the rooms where guests stayed overnight. You'll see that there were no beds in the room, but this next photo you see, here's an example of the beds as they are being packed up. We have beds that when we're on a rotational shelter will move from congregation to congregation. In the static site, they stayed in the same place. This next photo, see that Centerpoint has lots of space for recreation. So here's one of the indoor playrooms. And this room was a kind of lounge room, TV room to hang out between dinner and bedtime when the families are staying overnight at the host site. And they also had place outside to play, so a little basketball court on the parking lot, as well as a nice playground with some swings. Centerpoint has really lovely facilities, and we're able to be really wonderful hosts to our family while they were in shelter.
Good afternoon. My name is Steve Wakeland. I'm one of the volunteers that help here at Family Promise in Lawrence County. I'm a member of the St. James United Methodist Church in Watchville. I'm also, I guess you might say, one of the facilitators, coordinators of our church, along with some other people. I'm not here to give any credit to myself today. That's first of all. I'm here to tell people about Family Promise. I first found out about Family Promise, and I forgot the gentleman's name. He came to our church. I had to make a couple notes so I remember. Back in January of 2019, our pastor at that time said it would be good if our church got involved. So he came and gave us an overview of how Family Promise worked and how all the 13 churches that would become host church would be involved. In our church at that time, we were a little reluctant to become a host church, but there was a few of us that said, why not become a support church? So we decided we would support First Methodist. Now, we're all Methodist, Baptist. There's no specific religion here, no specific group that has a monopoly. But we decided we would like to work with First Methodist. So we did, and we went through some training that year. I knew they needed some help, and they were getting close to the end, and someone had mentioned they might need some help painting. So I talked to Steve Hobbs, and he said, can you paint? And I said, sure, I can do painting around the house. You know, my wife's usually in charge, but I can paint. So I came here, it was about the 12th of August. Came here and see what they needed, so I went home, got my paint brushes, and started coming in, and next thing I know, I'm painting, and helped do the trim. Steve was here every day, and came in and just painted whenever I could. Next thing I know, I've been here with some others. The hours pick up and realize there is a lot to do here, Family Promise. When the Family Promise actually kicked in when the first family came in, our church was fortunate to be over at First Methodist. We stayed that week. All of us volunteered at different days. It was not hard at all. We just had to be there, help the family. Family took care of themselves. We were just there. They were the guests of the church, and we were there just to help. That's all we did. We made sure they were fed. Helped a little bit with driving the bus, and after that family left, I helped Steve Hobbs and the other people, we drove the truck to help move that first family down to Greenwood, which was very nice. And then we started, the next family came in and we had used Centerpoint as the host church because of the virus stuff. There was a need for drivers and I volunteered. Next thing you know, sometimes I drove the bus twice a day, morning and evening. Sometimes I drove 3 days in a group. Other times, if I wasn't here, people picked up. But I'm involved in Family Promise because I think it's important for me as a Christian to share with others what God has done for me. I've never been homeless. When I worked for the sheriff's office, I saw a lot of homelessness, and a lot of people that needed help. Can't save the world, but if one person, we can help them get through a crisis, get on their own, become independent, that's all we need to do. As a pastor told me one time, just try to do one good thing each day for somebody. Doesn't have to be a huge thing. Just a thank you, or help somebody get from point A to point B, or help them get to the laundromat, or take them to the grocery. That's why I help here at Family Promise. Look forward to this year being another good year, and I'll sign up when I can. And I encourage others, if you got the time, you don't need any money, just a little time, volunteer, and you'd be surprised what you can do for other people and the community, and try to bring others in so they can share in this giving, which we do. So.
Naomi, I know that this has been a big year for you and your organization, and I know there are a lot of wonderful volunteers, and I know there's some special people that you would like to recognize tonight.
Absolutely. So the first one we want to recognize is Centerpoint Wesleyan Church, who very graciously served as our static site shelter from about mid-July to mid-November. And we've actually created a resolution, and we'd love for you to read it to everyone.
I would be honored to read this resolution. The Family Promise of Lawrence County, Resolution of Thanks and Appreciation. Whereas, after 2 years of preparation, the Family Promise of Lawrence County affiliate officially opened for operation on February the 11th, 2020, with the intent to serve homeless families with children in Lawrence County, utilizing the proven National Family Promise rotational shelter model. Therefore, the Family Promise of Lawrence County Board of Directors, on behalf of the officers, the Executive Director, host and support congregations, and volunteers, does hereby tender to Scott and Sandy Buchanan both its appreciation for their many labors and many thanks for a job well done, and it wishes for them, as well as the congregation of Centerpoint Wesleyan Church, in all future endeavors. We want to thank you tonight for being such a wonderful couple to model God's promise for us all, that He will take care of us no matter what. And we just are so thankful. And Naomi, I know that this is very special for you to be able to present this tonight, because this is your first award given.
It is, and it's a very special award because the volunteers of Centerpoint, under the leadership of Scott and Sandy Buchanan, really took the role as a static site shelter and went above and beyond the call of duty, and we are deeply appreciative of all of their work.
Yes, and Naomi will be getting this to them personally very soon.
Yes.
Thank you.
And our second volunteer award is, since this is our first year, it's our inaugural Shining Star Award. And this second award is for Steve Wakeland, who you heard from earlier in the program. What's funny is that in his testimony, he talks about how he's not trying to get credit, but we want to give him some credit because Steve Wakeland has answered the call every time there was a need for volunteers. When we needed volunteer bus drivers, you heard him talk about how he would sometimes do both morning and afternoon shifts, sometimes multiple times a week. He's also one of the volunteer coordinators at his congregation, St. James United Methodist Church, and worked closely with the team to coordinate their efforts when it was their host week in partnership with their host congregation, First United Methodist Church of Lawrence. as well as actually volunteering and staying overnight when we had the shelter model happening, has helped sort through our donations we've received. He's helped drive the truck to pick up furniture and appliances that were donated. He's even done things like help clean up the day center and pick up our recycling. And we are so thankful for how involved Steve Wakeland has been from the very beginning of Family Promise of Lawrence County affiliate. And so we want to recognize him for all of his service.
It sounds like Steve has meant a whole lot to your organization, and I'm sure he's a good role model for the other volunteers.
Absolutely, and he will tell you that he is always trying to get more people involved.
Well, how do more people get involved?
Well, that's a great question. It's very complicated with the pandemic happening, but we always are trying to look for more host and support congregations, as we talked about earlier. And then you can also see our volunteer opportunities on on our email list, our website, as well as our social media accounts. Right now, we're partnering on an event in conjunction with United Way of Lawrence County, which we did an event with them in beginning of January. We're doing another one in February 20th, which is also in partnership with the health department, as well as some other local nonprofits, to do COVID testing as well as essential item giveaway. So we are currently running a donation drive for essential items. We're collecting masks, hand sanitizer, blankets, toilet paper, paper towels, and plastic grocery bags. And you can drop those off either at our day center, which is at 205 Church Street in Lawrence, or at the United Way office, which is at 16 Peachtree Street in Clinton.
Well, Naomi, you have these wonderful volunteers that have meant so much to your organization here and to Lawrence County, but they do a wonderful job and we appreciate it. But if it were not for the families, they would not have this opportunity. Tell us a little bit about perhaps maybe some of the families that y'all have reached out to this year.
Absolutely. So as I have said over and over, this year didn't look exactly how we thought it would, but we still served 55 individuals, and out of those 55 individuals, there were 33 children under the age of 18. 15 of those children were under the age of 5. So we're very proud of the work that we've been able to do, even though we don't always know what it's going to be when a family contacts us. We've hosted a family in our rotational shelter before it paused. We have hosted families in hotels briefly, some for very short-term amounts of time. There was one family that we hosted for a month before they were able to move into housing. Then we moved to our static site model from July to November, and we're actually planning to reopen our static site in March, hopefully, depending on how the next few weeks go with the pandemic. We've also worked with 9 different families in our prevention program, so that's homelessness prevention, and we work on trying to keep families in their homes and from experiencing the trauma of homelessness in the first place. We've had 2 families that we were able to provide furniture and appliances when they moved into a new place. We've been able to serve numerous families with other kinds of in-kind donations, such as the baby items I mentioned earlier, clothing, groceries, gas cards, hygiene items, and more. And as I mentioned, the event that we did with United Way last month, we estimate about 200 households were able to come through and get essential items like lotion, deodorant, toilet paper, masks, socks, blankets, things that people are really in need of since this pandemic has affected us all.
Well, you're speaking of that wonderful event that you have. Tell us a little bit what you see for the next 12 months.
Yes, so it's anyone's guess what this pandemic is going to be in the next year, but what we are planning is to continue being creative, adapting, serving families as we are able. As I mentioned, we are doing another event in partnership with the United Way that's on February 20th, and we're collecting items right now. We are hopeful that we will reopen our static site shelter come March, depending on how the next few weeks go, and of course, the comfort of our volunteers and everything. And then we are still planning to reopen our rotational model, and we may not wait until the pandemic is gone, because we don't know how long that's going to take, but we do see that if we can monitor how things go in the next few months, that there's the potential that we may be able to restart the rotational shelter with extra safety precautions come this summer. And in the meantime, we're continuing our prevention program, continue working with families, trying to prevent homelessness in the first place, as well as just connecting with other community agencies, other congregations, and support all of the efforts to help low-income people and people in need as much as we can.
Well, Naomi, you have done a wonderful job as the first leader of this organization in Lawrence County, and we must also recognize the Lawrence County Chamber for the Leadership Lawrence, because if it had not been for the class of Leadership Lawrence a few years ago, that we would not be having the brainstorming that this organization does to be able to come up with this. So you cannot underestimate Leadership Lawrence and what they may come up with, because this is something that's affecting people daily. And it's all about relationships. Leadership Lawrence is about relationships. Lawrence Family Promise is about relationships. And we're so thankful that we are right here tonight in Clinton First Baptist Church, where they've allowed us to use their sanctuary to help promote this wonderful organization. What a beautiful sight that we're standing in their sanctuary, right in front of this beautiful cross, right in front of these wonderful lights, because it is perfect. We know that God is a light to our community, and He wants us to be a light to our community as well. And that's what I think that y'all have been. Folks like right here, this wonderful church and their leadership, this wonderful man who just donates many, many, many hours of time and creativity to you and to the host churches. We can go on and on about how thankful that we are for the support that we've seen this first year. And I know there are wonderful things to come for years to come. Thank you and happy anniversary.
Thank you.